Hey guys, 50 degrees this morning. It's Tuesday, February 5th, I believe. So now we're turning into pretty much mostly mud. Traces of ice. Let's see what my driveway looks like. Come on, walk like a man, you.
I can't, but I almost fell.
Well, don't fall.
Here, I'm fine now.
So anyway, yeah, the driveway's clearing up pretty good. So again, those of you guys who are watching the kiln, it's 50 degrees out this morning. The kiln is around 78 over there. So things are looking pretty good. We got a nice wind which will help to dry stuff up, although it's not going to be enough because the wind's just not going to last long enough. And tomorrow the temps are supposed to go to freezing. Or no, we're supposed to have rain tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday it's supposed to be snow. So anyway, it's nice while it lasts. Hey guys, so I decided to put this copper coat onto this thing, and then I'm going to put it outside. I'm actually going to probably put it in the greenhouse for it to dry because it does have a little bit of a odor here, and I don't want to get sick from it, and I don't want Bullseye sick from it. So being in the greenhouse will help that problem. I like this copper coat, the way it looks. I don't know how well it works yet because I've only had it on the deck that I started using it on for almost a year. This spring it'll be a year, and I'll be able to, or this summer rather, it'll be a year, and I'll be able to see what it actually is looking like. From what I saw, it appeared to be holding up pretty good. Wood is deceiving when it starts to rot, or it rots from within, because the outside of it can look really good and then all of a sudden it falls apart. "50 degrees today, guys." I think I might have already said that. This stuff, the shirt I have on is like a wool shirt, so it's what I guess you could call porous. I noticed that when you use this copper coat, even when I go into the house, you can actually smell it on this shirt. It picks up some of the fumes. So I want to make sure that I get her to wash this thing. Once I'm done with this, even if I go with the dog on the four-wheeler, you know, you would think that the wind would blow the fumes. It doesn't. It really lingers. Boy, this thing came out pretty nice. I like what I see here. I have the garage door open in case you're wondering. And Bullseye's outside. I had put a coat on this earlier before I went to eat lunch. It's after lunch now. So this is the second coat. You can tell the difference in the woods here. They're really dark brown. That's how red oak gets when you this stuff. That's how red oak gets when you put this copper coat on it. And the pine gets more to what we're used to as far as color goes. Now the face of this, if you remember, I had planed, but I didn't plane the edges. So that's it. I am happy with this thing, and now I can get this out of here. I'll let it dry a little bit yet before I move it. I want to turn a fan on to blow some of these fumes out of here. Okay guys, on to the next project, whatever that might be. Hey YouTube. So, I did a lot of little things today, so I didn't really get to make a video about what I was doing. But I'm going to make a video about something that's, I always get questions about this in emails that I get. So, what I'd like to do is explain this to you. First of all, I get this question, you know, is what should I pay for logs? Or what should I pay for, you know, timber that's standing and stuff? Look, there is no simple answer for this. I can say to you that maybe a certain mill somewhere is paying $80 a ton for, let's say, red oak. Alright, so in order to figure out how much, you know, you're going to pay someone for the red oak they have on their property, you need to know a lot of things. You need to, first of all, you need to be able to recognize the species in wintertime, which is difficult. Okay? You need to also be able to tell what the grade of the species is. Now, I talked about this stuff before, but you know, you can go back into my videos about spreadsheets. That's where you should go if you're interested in this. But anyway, you need to know the species. You need to know how to be able to tell whether the, you know, what grade the log is and stuff like that before you go splurting off how much you're going to pay. I can say to somebody, oh, I'll pay you $80 a ton for red oak, and go there and find out that all the red oak trees are dead. So that's, you know, not a good idea for me to do that, so I don't do that. So when I get asked the question, how much should I pay for trees or logs, you know, standing timber or logs, here's the best way to figure this out. First of all, you have to have historical data. I talked about this before in an earlier video. Historical data is very important in business. I used to teach construction project management. I was a construction project owner, or a construction company owner and project manager for years and years. Okay? And the only way to make money at it is to watch the numbers and watch what happens from day to day. Know what you can do and what you cannot do. And when it comes to lumber, it's the same thing. You have to know how much it costs to cut a tree down, get it onto the truck, get it to where your mill is, get it milled before you can know, and get it sold, sell the lumber before you know how much that's worth. If you go out and say, let's say that I have a let's say I have a buyer for a red oak hardwood flooring, okay? Now, I get the red oak, I cut it up, the guy will buy whatever, 1x6s, 1x12s, whatever, or he'll buy the logs, whatever. Let's say he buys the 1x6. Okay, so he's going to give me a certain price for these 1x6, okay, that I cut up. Now, he may, depending upon my abilities and his, the guy that he uses to tell me whether or not they'll buy the wood, okay, we have to be able to agree on terms, and we have to be able to agree on what we're looking at. I can't look at a piece of red oak and say, well, this is red oak and this is good for flooring, and the guy who does flooring for a living says, this may be red oak, but it's not the kind of red oak we want. It's not good enough for flooring. We need something, you know, better than this. So you need to know the grade of wood. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is this. You need to go back to my videos that talk about spreadsheets, and you need to figure out the best you can how much it costs to cut things down, get them, cut trees down, get them delivered to wherever your yard is, or wherever they're going to be, you know, picked up by you, because we're talking here mainly about people who have a sawmill, okay? You have to have some historical data, like how much can you really cut in a day? I mean, if you're my age, you're not going to cut, you know, a lot of lumber every day. 1,000 board feet a day is out of the question, in my opinion. So, you know, unless you're a young guy, it's hard to do with a, you know, a small mill. So, but my point here is that you need to know how much you can do, okay? And you need to know the cost of what you're doing. For instance, with the Wood-Mizer, if it's gas, it's you know, if you're financing it, or even if you didn't finance it, you got to be able to get money back from the Wood-Mizer. So let's assume you financed it. You have to bring that payment in, the wear and tear. I talked about this all before. Like I said, gas, you know, maintenance, whatever it's going to cost you to keep the mill running for whatever time. Like let's say a whole year, you're going to cut for a whole year. You need to know as much historical data as you can. If you have 3 months worth, that's about the minimum that I would expect. If you have more than that, then good. So you need to look at that to be able to come up with some numbers. But once you know how much this stuff's going to cost and what you can sell your lumber for, you will know from those numbers how much you can pay for something. For instance, if I cut down a tree and I have 100 board feet, okay, now, here's what I personally do. I personally look at Walmart, or not Walmart, Lowe's. I look at Lowe's prices for red oak. It's basically $8 a board foot. As far as I'm concerned, when a plain board comes out of off my property, it's coming off at $8 a board foot, because that's the nearest place to buy red oak that's been planed down to the sizes that I have is Lowe's. And if you're going to go there, you're going to pay $8 a board foot, you're going to pay it with me. Now, depending upon how much you buy, I might want to give you a discount or whatever, but that's my own doing, okay? That's up to me. But what you need to do, when you ask me the question, how much do we pay for logs or whatever, there's so much to know about this. You got to know, besides what it costs you to operate to go get those logs, besides that, which is everything from the telephone to make the call, to the gas for your pickup truck, to insurances if you have it, your chainsaw costs, all that stuff, you also have to know, like I said, about the species of the tree. Is it white oak? Is it red oak? Is it freaking chestnut oak? What kind of oak is it? If it is oak, I mean, if it's cherry, for me right now, I would pay as much as I had to get cherry trees, because cherry, I don't have cherry, and I can't get cherry readily, okay? I can get red oak all over, I can buy red oak any day of the week, I can cut it on my own property, not a problem. White oak, not a problem. But when it comes to like maple or cherry, I have problems getting that. So, you know, to me, I would pay a premium to get that kind of lumber. But anyway, that's my own opinion. But let me just take you back here. All right, so once you know how much all of your costs are to be able to do business, to be able to cut trees, bring them in, mill them. Once you know how much it costs, you got to figure out how much milling you have done. This is why you should keep track of every log you mill and every board foot that comes off your mill. And after it's been dried, like for me, after it's gone through the kiln, and after I put it through the planer, is the board marketable? Can I sell that board as a good board? If you can't, it's warped, it's twisted, it's split, then the value goes down considerably, you know, considerably. And think about this. It doesn't take much for a board to get a crack in it. And the board with a crack down the middle of it, one little tiny little hairline crack, is not worth what it is without that crack. So these are things you have to know. Now besides that, like I was saying about the species, you got to know what kind of wood you're looking at. You know, what type is it? What is it? You know, and how good is it? The grading of it. Once you know that, and then you have to look at where it is. You know, it's not as easy as people think. Well, you just drive in the woods, you know, with your skidder and start cutting trees down and drag them out. There may be all kind of issues that you have to consider that have to do with roads, runoff, cleanup. You know, a lot of people don't want that stuff laying all over the place on their private property, so they may want you to clean that up right away. And you may not have a chipper, you may have a chipper. I don't know how you're going to get rid of it, but the point is what are you going to do with that? So, you know, this is all part of figuring out how much you're going to pay for something. So I can't answer the question easily, you know, how much should I pay for a log, or how much should I pay for, you know, standing timber. The best thing for you to do if you're really in dire need of knowing a price because someone has trees for sale and it's going to go quick, is to call a mill and find out how much they'll pay you for them. Okay? Then you know what the price of timber is before it gets milled. Now, I'm assuming that if you have a mill, you've sat down and figured out how much it costs you to run it. If you didn't, then you will fail at this. You need to know what these costs are. Same thing, well, anyway, you need to know the cost of what it costs you to mill things. Now, once you know what the local mills would pay for the timber, you have to be able to know the quality of the timber, because some people may want, you know, the timber for different reasons, depending upon what they make with it or what they do with it. Like, for instance, if they're making pallets, you know, it's a different grade than it is if they're making kitchen cabinets, if the people sell kitchen cabinet lumber, or flooring. So you need to know that. And you got to call as many people as you can to get the prices for that. Just tell them what you roughly have. You know, if you're going to be cutting down so many trees and you've measured them out and you know basically what you got as far as 1,000 board foot goes, that is something that you have a place to start. Now, in order to know how many board feet are in all this stuff, or the weight of it if somebody's going to buy by the ton, is you need to be able to look at the different scales. There's a Doyle scale, there's an international scale, there's different scales that people go by. So you need to look at them, because if one person goes by one type of scale and you go by another, you're not going to be able to get all the money you think you're going to get, or you may feel cheated because they went by a scale that doesn't allow, you know, for the use of, say, a bandsaw mill, to be able to get all that little extra lumber you can get out of a bandsaw mill. That's one thing I like about the mill. But anyway, yeah, so when it comes to, you know, me answering the question, how much should I pay for logs? I cannot answer that unless, only you can. You can answer that by knowing how much it costs you to mill, how much you can sell the lumber for after it's been milled and planed, or whatever stage you're selling it in. A lot of times people will sell hardwood, you know, unplaned. And I don't like that route, so I don't go that route. But that doesn't mean it's not a viable way to go, because it certainly is. I'm just saying that, you know, this is what you need to know. So once you know the quality of the lumber, You know the species of the lumber. You know how much it costs to get it from standing to your mill. Then you can start to determine, like you add up all those costs, break them down for the amount of wood that you got. So after you've been cutting for a while, you should be able to say, like for me, for instance, last year I cut 5,000 board feet of lumber. Okay, now 5,000 board feet is not a lot of lumber, but 5,000 board feet was what I needed for my particular needs, and I can use that 5,000 board feet and divide that out into a whole bunch of variables to tell me how much it costs a board foot to cut lumber. So, this is what you need to be able to do. So go back and look, like I say, at my spreadsheet video on the cost of business, or the cost of doing business. And that's not meant to give you numbers to go by. That is meant to show you how to find the numbers to go by. Okay? The sooner you find out how much things cost you, not me, but you, then you'll know how much you can afford to pay for logs and how much you can afford to sell them for. And you want to make a profit at this. And while I have your attention, and I hope I do, let me just explain this to you. You go to the bank and you put your money in the bank. What do they give you? If you buy a CD, you get like 2% if you're lucky. So, not too many years ago, in fact, I'll tell you what, I usually say that my favorite president of all time was that peanut farmer. I can't even think of his name right now. Jimmy something. I don't remember his last name. But anyway, that guy was my favorite president. You know why? Because when I put money in the bank at that time, I was getting 18% interest on it. So like on $25,000, I was making $100 a freaking month in interest. You can't beat that. But today, people are confused by how much should I be earning. Everybody's cutthroat. I'll tell you something. I had a friend that was that worked for me, owned a business, a subcontractor, and he used to say, if I can't make 25% of my money, I'm not going to do the job. Well, I'm going to tell you something. My grandfather used to take it a lot further. My grandfather had multiple businesses that I inherited some of. And the way that it works is we want 100% on our money. Now that sounds pretty incredible. That means that if you spend $1, you get $1, okay, as profit. So what that means is if you spend $1, okay, and all of your costs and everything are included in that $1 that you're talking about, you make $2 back. That's what we try to do in order to make money. And to pay our bills and to replace equipment that dies. That's one of the biggest things that people never look at. They buy themselves a new car or a new truck or a new pickup truck. I see this with carpenters all the time. They buy themselves a new pickup truck. It's the first thing they buy when they go into business. Next thing you know, 5 years down the road, they can't afford a new truck and they're driving a piece of junk that has rust hanging all over the place. That's simply because they never bothered to figure out how much things actually cost. So guys, that's the main point. You need to know how much things cost you before you can figure out how much it's going to cost or how much you can pay for things. Okay? So again, before you know how much, you have to know how much you can get for the lumber you're making and know how much it costs for you to produce it before you can find out or before you can tell someone how much you're going to pay for it. I hope this video is helpful. I'll try and do other videos on this if I get any questions on this like I've been getting. Thanks guys. Have a good one. Bye.